Greetings, everyone. It is a pretty nice morning here in Southeast Georgia. Heading to work a little bit later than I usually do. Took care of some early errands that I just needed to get done this morning. So got a lot of show up a little bit later to work than normal, which is nice, very pleasant. Crazy thing happened yesterday, as probably all of y'all know. The administration, the executive under Trump has taken over essentially the policing in Washington D.C. It's kind of crazy. This doesn't happen very often. I think it's really just a move by the Trump administration to kind of test out ideas of taking over cities, using the army, using the National Guard to enforce what they want and try and circumvent local law. So currently with the Home Rule Act in D.C., it's well within the president's authority to do such a thing. It's limited in scope. It's only up to 30 days. Any further requires congressional approval, and then it also requires the administration to basically give a written explanation of why such actions are actually needed. So I definitely see this as a little testing ground for them. And they're going to try and do, I shouldn't say they're going to, they're probably going to see how they can implement this in other cities, even though the same legal authority really isn't there. But if they make it by might, then it becomes right. So just keep that in mind.
/month and reserve seats while you can. And thanks.
This is Morning Edition on GPB. I'm Pamela Kirkland. The Associated Press has released its preseason top 25 college football rankings, and the University of Georgia comes in at number 5.
Cool. I'm not a big sports guy, so that's not like a big thing to me. But for those that enjoy sports, go Dogs.
But did get enough votes to land at number 31. Texas tops the poll for the first time ever. Defending national champion Ohio State is ranked 3rd, followed by Clemson at number 4. The SEC leads all conferences with a record 10 teams in the preseason top 25.
Not surprised.
Coming up, disregarding the advice of experts seems to be a trademark of the Trump administration. More on how his mindset is affecting policy at the Department of Health and Human Services. That's coming up in less than 15 minutes.
RFK
right
just abandoning entire fields of science
is now accessible
because of his own fears and because of a base that he has garnered over the last couple decades of vaccine skepticism, and the whole COVID vaccine skepticism that he more than happily gave into, the conspiratorial thinking. And now we're just getting rid of entire fields of science essentially. Will it maybe it's mRNA vaccines is what I'm specifically referencing. Is there going to be research in the background? By private companies, by people over in Europe and Asia, yeah, of course. But it's not going to be to the same extent, and it probably won't be to the same availability as it could have been here in America. So we're just shooting ourselves in the foot for a very vocal and very stupid minority of people.
Social and environmental problems. More information is at WaltonFamilyFoundation.org. And from listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Martinez.
I'm Michelle Martin. And I'm Layla Falden. What do Jeffrey Epstein's victims want from the Trump administration? The Department of Justice said it would not release its files on the disgraced financier and convicted sex offender. It outraged a good portion of the president's base. The administration shifted to damage control, and conspiracy theorists had something to talk about. The number 2 official of the Justice Department, who is the president's former attorney, met with Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year sentence for helping Epstein sexually abuse children. Some raised concerns she could be seeking a deal. And before the news broke Monday,
the federal judge, the deal might be not getting killed by the Justice Department.
Grand jury transcripts related to the criminal investigation of Maxwell. I spoke with Annie Farmer. She testified openly against both Epstein and Maxwell, saying they sexually abused her when she was 16 years old. And this conversation includes the discussion of sexual assaults. Annie, I've been thinking about you and so many others as Epstein and Maxwell are in the news so often right now, and just what that feels like for you as somebody who took the risk of publicly testifying and sharing what happened.
It has been a pretty exhausting few weeks, I'd say, as this has all come back up again. It is, challenging anytime you are confronted over and over again with these images of individuals that have harmed you, but also just to feel so out of control as the story has evolved in these unexpected ways, and it feels like we're not being considered and we're not being included.
How have you felt as you've watched how the administration has handled all this?
I'd say it's been very chaotic and left me and many others I've spoken with pretty anxious and sometimes pretty angry.
And so nobody has consulted with you and others. Has anyone from the government approached you to ask what you want? Anything?
No, not at all. I've reached out and spoken with one of the prosecutors, the one remaining prosecutor at SDNY, who was responsible for the guilty verdict for Ghislaine Maxwell, and it was clear to me that they were not even being involved in this process. And so, I did put my concerns into a letter and sent that to Deputy Attorney General Blanchard. I haven't heard a response from that, and I know others have done the same. Have written letters about their concerns about how this is all unfolding.
Seems like they're not doing it for the victims; they're doing it for potential co-conspirators.
And Maxwell does not receive preferential treatment for the information that she provides. To have her be a part of this process and potentially trade information for a lesser sentence feels very wrong, not just for those of us directly involved in the trial, but for so many of the women that she harmed. That sends a very damaging message to our country.
How do you think the Justice Department should approach Ghislaine Maxwell?
With a lot of caution. I think the government charged her with perjury because they did not believe she was a reliable witness in the past. So I think there are plenty of other places that they could get information. They do not need to be getting it from her.
Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved to a lower security prison. She's also met with a top DOJ official. Watching that happen, what's going through your mind?
I was really in disbelief at how quickly that all unfolded, and again that there wasn't any sort of heads up given to. I spoke with other people that were involved, and I know that nobody received any kind of information about that before it happened.
The grand jury papers.
Yes.
The request to unseal them. Something Maxwell does not want. Something that your lawyers have said very much that you do want. Why do you want those public, and what might be in them?
Well, I think it goes beyond just the grand jury papers, right? What most people who have followed this case are interested in is more transparency about what happened, again, with those initial reports. Why were they not followed up on? And things like when my sister, Maria Farmer, reported to the FBI, she also reported that photos of hers had been stolen. She was a visual artist. She had taken photos of my younger sister and myself that were partially nude to paint from. We don't ever know what happened to those photos. When I was in the courtroom for Jeffrey Epstein's bail hearing, I learned that they had found a lot of photos on his property, but no one ever followed up in any way whether those might have included our photos. Right? So there's, I think, just a lot of information that pertains to the survivors' individual experiences, whether there were other perpetrators or just understanding more about what went wrong here and who else might be involved.
You're the only, I think, victim who testified with your name, right, publicly in the Maxwell case?
Right.
And that takes a lot of bravery. If you want to share at all what happened to you and why in this moment you don't want to see Maxwell get you.
when I was alone with Epstein and Maxwell at this ranch in New Mexico, she's the one who started instructing me on this is how, how we massage Jeffrey, and this is what a massage is like, so you should get undressed and I can give you a massage and then, expose my body and touch me. And I think that people don't necessarily understand that she was not just involved in finding young women for Epstein, but she was also involved very much in the abuse and perpetrating those crimes herself. So she is not being blamed for someone else's crimes, she is serving a sentence for her own crimes, and I just want to make sure people remember that and understand that.
And Maxwell's lawyers say releasing her documents among the grand jury documents would be a, quote, intrusion into grand jury secrecy, that Epstein may be dead, but she is living and has due process rights. So what do you make of that?
I'm not surprised that they would be hesitant for more information to be revealed that would, paint her in a damning light. Right? They're trying to rehab her image right now, and so people's testimony about the kinds of crimes she committed probably would not help with their goal.
If there were one thing you wanted people to hear from you, what would it be?
Just remembering that there are real individuals involved. These are their individual, very challenging experiences at the heart of this case, and that's had tremendous repercussions for people's lives. And so I think it's important to step back and try not to fall into that political game around the case, and be clear that this is really about the abuse of power and about protecting young people, and making sure that people are held accountable when they commit these types of crimes.
That's Annie Farmer. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
God, oh my gosh. It really just shows how disgusting Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein really were, and really are still with Maxwell. Like, Jesus Christ, it's disgusting. And it feels like the current administration is trying to cover it up. Like, what the hell? I mean, in the whole just push, during the campaign of, releasing all the Epstein files, finally getting justice, getting to know more about, all of this terrible things that happened for decades, and for it all to just be to now just be a continuation of a cover-up. Like, I don't know what happened, with all the people that Epstein and Maxwell, assaulted, collected, like they were just objects, It's just, I don't know that, and I'm not going to ever claim to know that. I'm not that kind of person that thinks I know the conspiracy. But there's a lot of links that are worth questioning, and worth investigating. And if someone was, assaulting children, they should go to jail. There's not a if and or but. There's no making them seem like a more of a human being at that point. Like, I mean, they made a choice. They made a disgusting choice. And I mean, maybe I'm draconian in this thought, but like, people don't need to be in society to just be roaming around, especially when it's hundreds and hundreds of victims. It's disgusting. So, I mean, maybe it's on us as like the populace to not push on the last administration, because once the 2020 election was said and done, and people had finally given up, and all the lawsuits had finally been thrown out of court in early 2021 regarding the election and everything, we should have looked back and we should have went, hey, there's still this disgusting case, and not let far off the rocker conspiracy theorists be the only ones dominating the conversation, right? And maybe we could have gotten some actual progress. Do I think the super high level people would have gotten what they deserve? No, I don't. I don't think the Bill Clintons of the world, the one of the Saudi crown princes would have gotten what they deserve, right? But I think at least a lot lower level people would have. And then who knows? Maybe they would have done some type of plea deal and brought other people down. I don't know. Do I think the Brandon regime, the Biden administration, would have been the most effective? No. But I feel like they were allowed to implicitly continue the cover up because we didn't put the pressure on them. So I'll leave it there. It's a sad story. It's gross. Sorry to kind of have it end on that note, but we need to keep pressuring our politicians to do the right thing, right? To keep issuing subpoenas, because the current list of subpoenas that the Senate issued to gather more information, this Rule of 5 thing, it's not enough. It didn't include really anybody in the current administration. It didn't include the Deputy Attorney General. It didn't include all of Trump's lawyers, people who are actively working on this case. So it needs to go further. Just keep pressuring your politicians, both the Republicans and the Democrats, because that's the only way you're going to get real progress on this. Anyways, y'all have a good one. Enjoy your Tuesday.